Welcome to the show. Today we have a special guest who is a passionate advocate for vegetarianism and speaks out against meat consumption. Charles has dedicated his life to promoting a plant based lifestyle driven by health, environmental, and ethical consideration. With a wealth of knowledge and a genuine enthusiasm for vegetarian living, Charles is here to share a valuable insight, personal stories, and practical advice on embracing a meat free diet. Please join me in welcoming Charles to the podcast. What inspired you to become a vegetarian and what motivated you to advocate against meat consumption?
All right. That's a very interesting question. Well, I've been a vegetarian for about 6 years now, and before I decided to become one, I'd already been thinking about it for 6 to 12 months. Like before that, I wasn't even thinking about it. Like I would not even think of what I was eating in terms of meat, fish, and so on. I would just enjoy every meal I had. But at some point in my life, I just started thinking, what are we eating? Like, is it normal to eat meat? What is that meat? It's not like when you eat, for instance, an apple. You know, the apple comes from the tree. But when you eat meat, I just realized most people don't even know what they are eating, and they just see it as something you can buy in the supermarket, like you could buy a chocolate bar. And I just started thinking, what am I eating? What is that meat? Where is it coming from? How was it bred? And I started inquiring a lot about the subject. And eventually I thought that maybe it was time to try something new, to give it a shot and see what is life when you don't eat meat. And honestly, that was a very tough decision because I used to eat a lot of meat and a lot of fish. I loved it. Like my mother is a great cook. She would always cook some chicken, some beef, some pork. Like everything was so tasty. So it was a very hard decision, a very hard move. But I just thought, let's give it a try. Let's see if I can live without it. And we'll see. And that's what I did 6 years ago. So that was the first, the first move. And obviously at first it was very difficult. Like I would clearly felt like there was something missing in my plate. I felt like I wasn't eating as well as I used to. So it was very disturbing at the beginning, but eventually it worked. And basically my decision was based on two factors. The first one was animal cruelty. I mean, when you think about it, when you inquire about the topic, like meat doesn't grow in trees. Like you don't just pick an apple, like pick a piece of meat, like you pick an apple and you know that you're not going to hurt the tree. Meat comes from an animal, chicken, beef, pork, rabbit, whatever. And that animal had to be killed so that we could eat it. So I just started thinking, is it normal? Like, is it right to take a living animal's life just to have one meal or not? And I thought it wasn't. And the second factor that clearly helped me move towards that decision was the environment. Because when you inquire about it, you can clearly understand that the environment is also very impacted by the production and consumption of meat. And I'm very I wouldn't say passionate, but I'm very involved in these environmental issues. And I just thought, let's try, because it's a win-win for everybody. So let's give it a shot and see how it goes. And it's been 6 years, and so far I've never regretted my decision.
Oh wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So now that means that you're never gonna do it because you did it for 6 years.
Nowadays it would be very strange to go back to a meat diet. It doesn't mean that I never eat meat. Like sometimes I still eat meat, like maybe 3-4 times a year when I'm invited over to my friends and they've cooked something. I'm going to be polite. I'm going to eat. Like I'm not trying to impose my beliefs on other people's. I just want them to respect mine and I'll respect them. So if you invite me over and you've cooked the chicken and there's nothing else to eat, I'm going to be polite and I'm going to eat your chicken. But in the past 6 years, I've never bought meat and brought it back to my apartment. So that's the way I'm living it now. I'm not extreme. Like I'm still open-minded, and like if I have no other choice, I'll go with it. But anytime I have an alternative to not eat meat, I'll go for it. So
Okay. Okay. And how has switching to a vegetarian diet impacted your health and well-being?
it's a bit hard to answer that question because I've always had a rather healthy lifestyle. So it's not like I was like before I would be like eating junk food all the time and so on. Like I've always been rather healthy. So I would say the impact wasn't so big, but still I felt a little difference when I did sports. Like for instance, when I go jogging, I feel so much lighter at running now that I'm a vegetarian than before when I used to eat meat. Like there's no questioning about that, but it's really hard because I've always been healthy and I've always exercised a lot and eat fresh food, so it wasn't such a big change. However, I've seen a movie on Netflix which is called Game Changer, which had a really big impact in my decision. And they were explaining that actually when you eat meat, it's quite unhealthy for your body. I mean, I think it's a bit biased, yeah. But still, I mean, it says that you don't have as much cholesterol. When you exercise, you're much less likely to get hurt or like to get a sprain and so on, because you don't have these nutriment that will make your body get an inflammation or like hurt itself more easily or like get infected. But yeah, I'm not going to tell you that not eating meat anymore changed my whole health, because I don't think it completely did, but I still feel a small impact. And I would say the biggest impact is in my head. Like I feel whatever I eat now, like I am not feeling guilty at all. Like I can enjoy it as much as it.
What about the energy levels? Is the same?
I'd say it's actually a little better, because when you eat meat, usually digestion is very long, especially when you eat beef. It can take, for beef, it takes like up to 3 hours, and chicken is like an hour and a half or 2 hours. So I don't have that issue anymore because I don't eat any of that. So I'd say I have more energy after lunch, and yeah, I feel more energetic after lunch.
Most of the meat eaters say the opposite. They say like when we don't eat meat, we don't feel energetic. So that's why we cannot, just leave eating meat. That's why we eat meat. That's a lot of people say that.
They say so, but I don't feel I have less energy. I still go a lot to the gym. I've actually gained weight and gained muscle since I stopped. So I don't see any reason to stop it. Except the taste, of course, but at some point you got to think, what am I doing? Is it right to eat that poor animal that has not even seen the sky because it was bred in like industrial farming, or should I just enjoy one meal? I think you have to think bigger and just stick to your values, and actually with time, like you forget a lot about it. Like now I don't miss it at all. Like I haven't missed it in a long time.
Because we get like a lot of different vegetarian options now, vegan and vegetarian options. So that's why it's easier to switch.
It's a lot easier, as you said, because now there are lots of alternatives. They don't always taste great, but actually now it's coming very close to tasting like real meat. The best ones are Beyond Meat and Impossible. They are very fine. But also I've become a vegetarian, not a vegan. Like I still eat eggs, cheese. Yes. I know a lot of people go vegan. Personally, it's too far. Like it's too much for me. Like I can't stop eating eggs and cheese. I'm French, so we have a lot of cheese in our culture. It tastes so good. Like I don't want to quit that but it's not just because it's too hard. It's also because I believe it doesn't hurt the animal. It doesn't hurt the hen when you eat the eggs that she's laid, and they're not gonna turn into a baby chicken. So
and chicks.
Yeah, like why let it rot on the ground when you can eat it and it's healthy? Same with cheese. It's made from milk. In France, we have a lot of very small cheese farmers, and they have like very small cattle. Like you can tell the animals are treated properly, like they are taken into in the mountains, then back and so on. Like I don't think the animal is hurt in that process. I think most of the time it's actually quite healthy for everybody. So why not eat cheese?
Can you share a specific moment or experience that solidified your decision to embrace a vegetarian lifestyle?
Okay. First of all, I'd started inquiring about it, and I was thinking that I should try at least because it sounded right, considering my values. So there were two things that really impacted a lot my decision. The first one was this game changer documentary on Netflix that really had me rethink my whole perception of meat, plus all the benefits on health and so on, and why humans should not eat meat and rather have a vegetarian diet. So that was a very interesting documentary. I know not everything is true. It's probably also, like marketing and so on, but most of it made a lot of sense. And while I was transitioning towards that diet, I was living in the countryside, and I was going to, every week I would go to a tree that was in the middle of the field, and there were cows all around, and I was just picking fruits from the tree because it was fresh and tasty. And I didn't pay much attention before that, but I just started looking at the cows, and I thought, wow, that's meat. It's not that steak that you buy in the supermarket that looks good. It's meat. It's that cow. So basically, you just take a knife, you slit its throat, and that's a steak. And I just thought, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to kill that animal just for one good meal. It doesn't make any sense. It's cruel. And also, while I was picking these trees, these fruits, they would watch me. They would come to me. They'd be curious. And I've always had pets. Like I've always had dogs and cats. Like in my family, we love animals. And I just started thinking, that cow is actually a little bit like a dog somehow.
Yes.
Like it behaves the same way. It's looking at me. It's curious. I would give them the food. They would eat it. I really felt like, wow, there's not such a big difference. And I would never eat a dog or a cat because it's just out of the question. And I thought maybe that's the same thing somehow. It's not that far away. So I just thought, do I want to maintain that system where basically I hire somebody to kill that animal, skin it off, cut it into pieces so I can fry a steak? And I just thought, no way, like it's not possible anymore. And now that's the way I think. That's why I can eat eggs, because the eggs on the ground, I mean, if you leave it, it's gonna rot, and it's a waste for everybody. But killing an animal for that, I think it's wrong. And also something that is very that was a very strong argument in my decision is nowadays, like the meat we eat is very low quality. We're not like 50 years ago where you could eat meat from the field over there. Like there's a farmer, he has 50 cows, he takes care of them and so on. Now we have industrial feeding and industrial breeding for cattle. And most of these animals, actually, they don't even see the sky ever. Like they live in huge buildings, barns, and like they have a very horrible life until they are slaughtered. And I just thought, I don't want to be part of it. Like, I mean, I respect other people's decision, even if I disagree very strongly with them. But like, I don't want any part in that. Like, I don't want to pay for that. I want to support that system. And one last thing about it is when you inquire about it, the quality of meat is horrible nowadays. Like industrial meat production has gone so bad that, for instance, a chicken. Do you know how many days live a chicken before it is slaughtered in industrial meat production? How many days do you think?
1 day, 2 day, 3 day.
Like, come on, it goes from an egg to a chicken.
No, after like coming out of egg, I mean.
Actually, once it came out of its egg, a chicken will live. An industrial chicken will live like 30 to 35 days on average. And that's it. It goes from an egg to a chicken. And obviously these animals, they are like overfed. They are fed with the worst things, so they grow fat and so on. And the worst thing is these animals, if you don't slaughter them to turn them into chicken wings and so on, like they're going to die anyway. Like their body won't be able to support that lifestyle more than 35 days. They are too fat, they are too heavy for their small legs, so
They
it's
can't even
worse. Yeah, like can you imagine
Yeah.
the quality of that meat that you have in your plate? It's horrible, and that's for industrial feeding. But when you take, in France we call it farm chicken, or I don't know how to translate it, but like high quality chicken, like organic chicken
Yeah.
and so on.
Grass-fed.
Grass fed. They only live a few months, and that's it. It's not like, and these animals, they could live like up to 10, 15 years.
Right.
But we're killing them after a few weeks. So it just doesn't make sense. Like how can that meat be healthy? And that's for
Right.
chicken. Hogs, they will live from 6 months to a year and a half on average, like maximum a year and a half. And beef from 18 to 36 months, maximum. So it just doesn't make sense. Like it can be healthy.
I think if people watch them slaughtered, or they go to a butcher shop and they see them the way they are killing them, a lot of people will stop, because
Exactly.
they think it grows on a tree or something, like you said.
They think they can just pick a steak like you pick an apple or a banana from a tree.
Exactly.
But no, it's not the way it is. And actually, watching these videos in slaughterhouses, I don't know what it's called in English, but places where places where these animals are being slaughtered. Like once you've seen it, like it's I mean it kills your mood. Like then you see, you perceive everything differently. And personally, that's what happened. I've seen videos of it, and I mean, it's not possible. It's not like if we're eating like Kobe beef or Argentinian beef every day. Like these animals, they have a decent life before they are slaughtered. But I mean, it's 1% of the meat we eat. So that's just, I don't know. I think I just think it's wrong.
Yeah, it's sad actually.
Yeah, and horrible.
For sure.
Like we're in 2024. We have to move on.
Of course, but it's I don't know, like these industries are too big. Yeah. But yeah, let's see. Hopefully people get enlightened and we have a brighter future. So how does meat consumption affect the environment, and what are the benefits of vegetarian diet can have in this context?
All right. Basically, 75% of the forest we turn into lands, into prairies, for breeding crops and harvesting them. 75% of the lands we clear from the forest is just for industrial meat production. It means we will produce more soja, more beans, more whatever these animals need. To feed them, we grow it, and so we're gonna grow. We're gonna clear acres and acres and acres of land just to feed one animal that will feed 20 humans for 1 meal. So if you think about it, I mean, if you eat all the soja, the beans, and so on first, like you're saving a lot of forest.
Yes, and water as well.
And water is even worse. Like when you, I think for every kilo of beef, there's like, I think it's like 1 ton of water used, because you have to feed the animal, you have to water its crops and so on. So yeah, I mean, it's not even something we can debate. It's just, those are facts. And at some point, like we know climate change is really bad. Like we've seen it, like in Canada, we don't even have winters anymore. Winters are super warm. You can tell there's something wrong. Like we have lots of fires in West Canada. It's horrible. Like now it's just fact. Like if we want to do something to stop this whole climate change crisis, we just have to do it now. And that's what we need to do. It's part of the solution. It's not everything, but it's a big part of the solution. And it's possible.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have to wake up and make the changes right now, because it's already too late.
One other thing with regarding that problem is lots of the meat we eat is not produced right next to our house. Lots of the worldwide meat production is produced in like South America, some part of Asia, but that meat will be eaten in the USA, in France, in Sweden. So then you also have to import the meat, which creates a lot
Transport
of
and everything.
exactly, which rejects a lot of carbon emission in the environment.
Correct.
So,
And people think it's grown on a tree.
yep.
right
Almost.
next to their house.
Or they just don't want to know.
Yeah, I think like subconsciously everybody knows it. They just don't want to accept it.
Yeah, they don't want to know
Because
it.
yeah, because it's very difficult to change, right?
Yeah,
It's super difficult to change, and they just want to stay in their comfort zone, I guess.
they don't want to change their habits. It's that simple. But also, I think the reason why is once you start inquiring about it, like your perception is changed probably forever. Like the few times I've had meat in the past years for like Christmas with my family and so on, when you eat the meat, it's not the same anymore. You know, you know what you're doing, and it feels so wrong. It doesn't taste so good anymore, and there's a change that never goes away. That's the problem they don't want to face.
Right.
And maybe lack of education regarding the subject too.
Right. What are the ethical considerations regarding meat consumption and animal welfare that influence your decision to go vegetarian?
Just the way the meat is produced nowadays. Like unless you're eating Kobe beef every day, I don't think the animal was treated properly until its death. So
yeah.
But Kobe beef is like hundreds of euros per 1
it's
kilo.
Too expensive.
So
yeah,
nobody can afford it. Very few people.
Yeah. And the meat that we get nowadays, it's super cheap. It's even cheaper than the vegetables.
Yeah.
So
it's the same price, depending on where you live. But yeah, meat has become very, very affordable. But the cheaper it gets, the lower the quality. It's
exactly. Okay, how do you respond to people who question the ethical implications of a vegetarian diet?
Usually it's very simple. We just talk about it and communicate, and I explain to people why I've decided to make that move. They'll explain me their position, and we communicate, and that's it. Like we just hear each other's ideas and perception. I haven't really managed to convince anybody so far, but I haven't really tried neither. Like I'm not trying to force people to change because nobody changes if they don't want to. But I would say just communicating helps a lot, but obviously not everybody understands. Like many people still want to stay the way they are and not change anything. So these ones, it's impossible. It's difficult to have a conversation, but I'm lucky. Like most people around me are quite educated and open-minded. So they understand what I'm doing. They don't bother me with them. And in return, like I don't bother them with what they're doing. They are open-minded. Like sometimes I invite them over to my house. I cook something. They will try my meals. They will try my dishes. And when I go to their house, I try theirs. I respect it. But I mean, it's just about communicating and being with smart people. So
Right. No, I mean, with this question was some people say, it's if you're saying that animal is a living being, plants are also living being, and if you're saying that we are killing animals, you're also killing the plants.
But can we really compare? Can we compare a tree and a chicken? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, the tree is going to grow these fruits. Whether you take them or not, they're going to be here. They're going to fall from the tree. So it's not like we're cutting down the tree to eat it. It's just like the tree is producing things, and it's going to drop down, and we're just going to take it. So it's to me, it's not even comparable. It makes no sense to compare it. So
exactly, you put it in like very good words. It's a beautiful answer actually. So what are the challenges you have faced as a vegetarian, and how you overcome them?
I would say there were two challenges I've faced so far. The first one is acceptance by other people. Like there are still many people who don't understand, who don't want to understand, and who will, never understand, and who don't react very, in a very, very friendly manner. Like some would say, men must eat meat. That's the way it is. That's how we're strong. But usually these people, they are the least healthy people you meet and the least educated. So I don't really take their decision into account. But when your family is impacted by that decision. Because, for instance, my sister has turned vegetarian. My brother is not far away, so I think it's a matter of years. And like when we come home for Christmas, my mom's like, "What am I going to cook now? Like you guys don't eat anything anymore." Yeah, so that was a bit difficult, but luckily everybody's open-minded about it.
Right.
And the second the second obstacle I had to face was finding alternative ingredients. Because if you don't eat meat anymore, in the French cuisine, for instance, we have a lot of dishes that involve meat or fish. So you have to find something to replace that piece of meat, that piece of chicken. And usually what I do is I go with vegetarian steaks. Some of them are fine for tasting. It's not as good as real meat, but you get used to it, and eventually you forget that it's not real meat. So, or you just try different meals. You go with different recipes and so on. But eventually, it's fine. Like you get over it. It's a lot harder. It's a lot easier than it seems.
Right.
It's a lot easier than it seems. So
yeah,
if you're motivated, you'll figure out a way.
Yeah, I know you used to do boxing, and also you go to gym. You do a lot of running as well. So what do you do about the protein intake? Because I'm sure like this question everybody will have. I go to gym, I do martial arts. How would I my protein intake?
Actually you can get more proteins from vegetables than from meat. Like meat, animals get the proteins from grass, from whatever they eat. So usually grass, beans, soja, and so on. And then you get it because they ate it. But if you eat straight, if you eat the soja, the beans, and so on straight, it's the same. So I've done a medical checkup 2.5 years ago, and they said everything was fine. But obviously, you have to think about it because you're changing your whole diet. So you have to be careful with it, because otherwise you might be under. I don't know how to say it in English, but you might lack protein.
Nutrients.
So you have to be careful. But if you think a little bit about it, if you inquire, if you do some research, eventually it's quite simple. Plus, these vegetarian steaks, they're full of proteins. Usually they're made of soja and mushrooms, and like you get way enough proteins out of them.
And all the strongest animals, they eat grass and
elephants. They eat grass. Rhinos, they eat grass. Bulls, they eat grass. Lions, they eat meat. But lions are very different from us, and lions have a lot of acid in their body, so they can digest meat, which we don't have. That's why our digestion is so hard when you've eaten meat. But yeah, if you think of it, many very strong animals, they just eat grass, and they are totally fine and much stronger than we are. So gorillas, what do gorillas eat?
Bananas.
Meat. Sorry. I'll say it again for your footage. What do gorillas eat? They eat grass. Period.
And what advice would you give to someone who is transitioning right now to a vegetarian diet?
I would say once you've made up your decision and you know why you're doing, never forget why you're doing it, and do some research for the alternatives. Like if you change your diet like tomorrow and you haven't done any research, like your meals are going to be sad at some point, because it's always going to be the same few things that don't contain meat. Do some research and you're going to figure out many ways to eat the same thing without meat, and it will be as tasty as with the meat. So just do a bit of research, everything will be fine.
Right. Yeah, that's good. What are some of your favorite vegetarian dishes?
Vegetarian burritos, vegetarian burgers, pasta. What else? Sushis. Basically the same thing.
So do you cook anything also vegetarian?
I cook most of the time I cook the same things as 6 years ago. I just change the ingredients. When I eat a burger, I'm going to take a vegetarian burger, but I'm still going to put the same ingredients in the burger, just not the meat. So it doesn't change much. When I eat a burrito, I'm just going to replace the meat, the chicken, by beans and soja, and it's exactly the same. And actually, that's where Beyond Meat and Impossible vegetarian steaks are really strong. Is they have managed to reproduce almost everything of a steak, like the taste, the aspect in the mouth, like the way you chew it, it's exactly the same. Like eventually you forget it's not meat. And when you go to Sweden, they have many alternatives. Like they're way more advanced than we are in Canada and Central Europe. And like over there, it doesn't feel at all like it's not meat. It really feels like you're eating meat, but it's plant-based.
Right. But there are other alternatives as well, like not alternatives, but vegetarian dishes like lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans.
Yeah, I eat a lot of these too, quite often, because I know I need to make sure I don't lack any nutriments. So yeah, you will eat some of these more often, but eventually all the main dishes, you can still have them. You just have to use vegetarian steaks, and that's it. There are also fake chicken nuggets, and it tastes really good. And it's probably healthier than what you eat in a fast food restaurant and like frozen stuff you can buy at the supermarkets. So
yeah, so it's more healthy. It doesn't harm any animal. All the benefits.
It's the same price. It's not going to impact your budget. It used to be more expensive. It used to be much harder to find alternatives, but now in 2024, it's quite simple.
Yeah, as demand going to increase, the price is gonna drop as well.
Exactly, but
because
actually
they're gonna produce in bulk.
Oh, exactly. But also, if you look at the curves of Beyond Meat stocks in the New York Stock Exchange, like the price just keeps rising. Like that company is just growing and growing, and it means something. It's not. It didn't happen out of nowhere. It's just that people are changing. People are understanding what's going on and what alternative they have, and they are happy with these ones. So it's in French we have an expression that says there is no smoke without fire, and that's exactly what's happening.
How do you engage and inspire your community to consider a vegetarian lifestyle?
Like I've said before, I don't really try to convince people. Like when they ask me, I'll explain why, but I'm not going to try to advocate and like advertise for that and say, yeah, you must do it like me. Like I respect everybody's decision, but just by talking with people, most of the time your arguments make so much more sense than theirs. Because most people will say, well, we've always eaten meat. Wow, that's brilliant. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Most people will say, oh, I don't want to try it. Okay, but maybe try it once. You'll see it's not the difference. Then they try and they say, oh, actually, it's not the difference. And it's not unhealthy. It's about the same. It's maybe even better. So usually just communicate, explain why I've taken that decision. And people will ask a lot of questions. You give them answers, and eventually they think, most of the time they think it's not that hard to move to a plant-based diet, and they are usually more surprised than I am. So
nice. Yeah. Also, plus when you go to your family on Christmas, you influence them by eating vegetarian, like you did to your sister and your brother.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, my sister started on her own, but she was living away from us. Like she was studying in another country for 5 years. So she had started. I didn't even know she had started. Like then we spoke and we're like, oh, you too. I'd say we spoke a little bit about it. He just started thinking, and he's slowly moving there, slowly getting there. It's just a matter of time, I think. But my parents, they are not moving anywhere. I think the older generation won't change their habits because that's the way they are. They don't want to change anything. They want to keep it the way it is. So it's a lot better for them.
Plus, as you age, it's more difficult to change a habit.
Also.
Yeah. So I think now a lot of things are available. We have social media also to so we can see what's going on in this world. So it's easier for us to adapt and change than the
Also,
previous generation.
but I think one thing that also made prevent them from changing is they still live in the past. Like they still believe like animals are bred the right way. I mean, there's no right way to breed an animal to kill him, but they are bred in a more ethical and healthy way, which is nowhere in 2024. So, for instance, when I go to my cottage house in France, it's in a small village in the middle of the countryside. There are still people breeding animal like back then, like 50 years ago. Like they'll have a few chickens, a few hogs, and it's a very different way of doing it, and it's a lot healthier and it's a lot more ethical. It doesn't mean it's great. I don't approve it, but it's much better than what industrial farming has turned into. So I think that's the problem. Our parents' generation still believe the world is that way, but it's not anymore.
Right.
That's changed a long time ago because people don't have money and they want the cheapest thing they can buy.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. This is also a reason for sure. So what do you think? What role do you believe policy and legislation play in promoting vegetarianism?
I think it's very simple. Like we need to act against climate change. It's not a debate. It's a fact. Like climate change is going to destroy the planet. We're going to suffer from it. Many countries are going to be in horrible conditions in 30, 50 years from now. Reducing our meat consumption, I'm not saying going vegetarian, but just reducing a lot would be very helpful. So at some point, if we want to reach our goals for climate change, like we have to move we have to change something somewhere. Like we can't just say, oh, we don't change anything and in 50 years it'll be fine. No, that's not the way it works. We have to start somewhere, and reducing our meat consumption is probably better for everybody because then we could eat higher quality meats. People will not change so much their diet, so it's easier, and we're helping the environment. We're not cutting down forests anymore for more meat and so on. So I think the politicians should try to have people make that move. It doesn't mean a 100% move towards vegetarianism, but if they start changing a little bit, it would already be of great help.
Like promoting it, maybe put some taxes on meat so that it's a little bit more expensive.
Money would help, obviously, like making it more expensive, but also just banning these slaughterhouses that don't respect any ethic. Or if you force these farmers to breed the animal a certain way that is more ethical, obviously the price of meat is going to increase. But at least it's done in a better way than it is right now. So it would be a win-win. Prices of meat increase and quality increase. So everybody wins.
That's
except the animals.
Yeah. Also, like, do you think these animals, they have emotions? So when we are trying to, you mentioned it before with the when you were in a farm and there was a cow came to you, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, they also that proves that they have emotions.
Definitely.
Right? Somebody have a gun or a knife and they're running behind us to kill us. We will get scared, right?
Obviously.
And our body also.
You should be.
That's a normal way. So our body also produces hormones, stress hormones. Mm-hmm. Right? I think animals also have the same functionality. They get stressed and they are releasing hormones, stress hormones in their body. And when we kill them and we eat them, we are eating the same hormones, the stress hormones. So I think this can also be reason these days people are so stressed up, and sometimes without any reason. Maybe it can be because of the diet that we have.
Probably, it could probably have an influence on that. But also, you were saying that animals have emotions. You were asking me if I think they have emotions. My answer is 200% yes. Like there's no doubt about it. When you have a dog, when you have a cat, when you have any animal around you, unless it's a goldfish where it's very different. But when you want to slaughter a lamb or a sheep, for instance, farmers will tell you that you have to hide your knife until the very last second, because otherwise the animals get scared, and then the meat is very hard because they were all contracted. The muscles were all sore. So I mean, why would they be scared if they have no emotion?
Emotions. That's correct.
They have emotions. True. It's obvious. I'm not saying every animal does. I don't know if jellyfishes have emotions. I don't know if you can interact with them, but they probably have something in their own way. But if it's alive, it has emotions. It has a conscience. So
I have seen a documentary a few years back of an octopus on Netflix. Mm-hmm. There was a guy who used to go in the sea every single day, and always near there was a nest of octopus. Always used to go there. In the beginning, the octopus was scared of that guy. After 3-4 days, it started playing with that guy. So it developed. It has also emotions. It has feelings. Now the octopus knew this guy doesn't gonna kill me. He comes every day and he plays with me. This guy is not scary. So they have feelings, they have emotions. That's how, also like memory and brain as well, right? That's why the octopus recorded that, oh, this guy came yesterday and day before yesterday.
And probably at different levels. Like a dog will have much more or many more emotions than, for instance, a goldfish.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So it's very different, but eventually they all have something. But then some animals have very different mind. I would say, like, for instance, I've heard, I'm not sure about it, I don't certify it's true, but I've heard that snakes, for instance, they don't really have emotions. If you have a snake as a pet, which I've never had, there are many. Sometimes you hear stories in the news that the snake attacked its owner, and what I've heard is that, for instance, snake, they don't have emotions. They just get used to things around them. So if you manipulate them every day, they get used to it, like if you were a tree or a rock or some grass, but they don't grow affection towards you. Yeah, they are here, and at some point you become meat to them, and they will try to eat you. But it's also nature. Like, I had a cat for 8 years until he passed away. Like, he would eat mice. But somehow it's right, because that's also how nature works. And these animals, they need to. Many animals, they survive by eating other animals, and it's just the way it works. And if we have too many of them, then the environment gets damaged, and if it gets damaged, then other animals suffer from it, and so on. So I think you also have to take into consideration that animals have different mind and different needs, but we are capable of living without. So why not do it? So,
exactly.
Like lions will never go vegetarians. They need meat. That's the way they are. But by eating meat, they control populations of other animals, and they make sure they don't grow too many. For instance, in France, we have a big problem with I don't know how it's called in English, but I'll translate to wild pigs in the forest, and they reproduce very fast. Like, I've heard things like they can grow like 15 or 20% per year. So it's very fast, and there are no predators anymore because we don't have wolves and bears in the forest in France anymore. Only in some very special areas. So these animals, they reproduce again and again and again. And the problem is they destroy the forest, because when they try to get meat, they will destroy some plants, some fields, and so on. And it's part of nature, it's fine. But when there are too many, we need to control that population. And because there are no predators, I believe humans should do it in a smart way, because we're capable of choosing, like, do we want to eat meat or not? And why we're doing it. Are we killing these wild pigs for fun, or are we killing them because we're protecting the forest? And I think in these conditions, it's perfectly fine. And it's also fine to eat the meat, because we killed it for a good reason, we weren't going to eat it for fun, but since it's here, let's eat it.
Right. So I think it's called web chain, something like that. If I remember correctly, there was a word of a cycle of web chain or something we used to call it. I don't remember the exact name. This disturbance also happens because we kill a lot of tiger, a lot of lions,
Yeah.
and wolves as well. So the whole the chain gets affected.
Exactly.
Not just for meat, but for for purses, leather, for meat as well, but for other products as well. So when we kill one of the animal, it hinders the whole chain.
That's exactly what's happening in France. Like we've killed all the wolves in the forest like hundreds of years ago. So like now the wild hogs are just running free. It's a human mistake, and it broke the whole chain. So we have to either reintroduce wolves in the forest so they can control the population, or we have to do it ourselves with hunting.
Right. In China, so they killed all the birds because they were
the bugs, the bugs in the crops.
Yeah, exactly. Then
the birds, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah, they killed all the birds because they were coming and eating the seeds. But because of that, there was no birds. A lot of bugs came.
Yeah.
And they destroyed the whole farmland and
it's a huge problem. They still suffer from it today. Like they have tried to reintroduce the birds, but it doesn't go as fast as you wish.
Yeah, it's slow. It's slow. That's crazy. Okay, let's go to the next one. What have you learned about yourself and your values through your journey towards meat-free lifestyle?
What have I learned about myself? I'd say that somehow that many things are easier than they look. At first, I thought, okay, let's try, but I wasn't very, enthusiastic. I thought I'd do it because I don't want to be part of it, but it's not like I enjoy doing it. I feel like I'm restraining myself from something I like. But it was a lot easier than I expected, and I think it's a good lesson in life that, I mean, to understand that many things are a lot easier than they look. And about my values, I live by my values. I don't want to live differently. And also the fact that many people disagree with me, don't understand why I'm doing it. It's also a way of, I mean, it forces me to affirm myself a lot more.
Right.
And say, that's the way I see it. That's the way I do it, whether you like it or not. So somehow you have to impose, it made me impose myself a lot more than I thought. And at first it was difficult because many people, 6 years ago, it was even harder. Like people were not moving at all. Like I was the only one doing it around where I lived. And like many people just did not understand, did not even want to try or try to understand. So that was a rough decision, but eventually it just made me stronger, I'd say. But it would have been the same had I made another big decision in another area. It's just, you do it, you're going to be different from many people, depending on where you live. Like in France, like very few people were doing it at the moment. In Canada, it's a lot easier. If I were in India, it would be probably much easier because most of the population doesn't eat meat. But it just made me really like impose myself and face people in a way that I'm not changing anything, whether you like it or not, and period. So
yeah, that
was a bit conflictual at the beginning.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It's so difficult in France to do that. In India, I'm from India, and it's so easy to do that because there's thousands of dishes, vegetarian dishes that we can have. So much food items, different kind of. But in France, it's totally opposite, right?
It's changing.
Yeah,
but we're far from it. But it's changing slowly. I mean, nowadays when you go to a restaurant in France, most of the time you can find vegetarian dishes. It won't be the best one, but they'll have like one or two or three alternatives. Whereas before, like sometimes they would have no alternatives. They would be like, would you like meat or fish? Which one? And if you disliked it, then you had to go elsewhere. But now, I mean, if you look globally, like McDonald's is now offering vegetarian burgers. KFC is offering vegetarian chicken nuggets. I mean, fake chicken nuggets. Like everybody's changing. And it's not just in some areas. It's not just like in countries where most people are vegetarian. It's like everywhere. Like things are slowly changing.
People are getting enlightened little day by day. That's good.
Yep.
We are moving in the right direction, I guess.
I think so.
Good to know. So if you could encourage listeners to take one specific action to support a vegetarian lifestyle, what would it be?
I would simply say, if you believe in it, if you want to live by your principles, by your values, and it's part of your values, it is a lot easier than you think. Just do a little bit of research. After 2 or 3 hours, you'll figure out all the alternatives you have, and honestly, it's much easier than you think. And after you've done it, there's no going back. I mean, you won't miss it. It takes, obviously, the first few weeks, the first few months, it's going to be hard. Maybe you're going to cheat from time to time, but afterwards, like nowadays, like I don't miss it at all. I have my alternatives. I'm very happy about it. I have my fake chicken nuggets, my fake steaks, and they taste good, and that's it. So I'd say if you believe in it, just go for it, because
and also
otherwise it makes no sense.
Yeah. Also, maybe they try it, right? Trying is not bad. If you don't want to continue, just don't continue, but just go and try it once.
Exactly, or just try, and you'll make up your own opinion. Like, I've tried to go vegan. Like I didn't want to. I just thought, okay, I'm going to try vegan meal, vegan recipes, and so on. I don't like it. I just don't like it. It's not my
cup of tea.
It's not my cup of tea. It's not my perception. I don't think it tastes as good. I don't think you can create vegan cheese that tastes as good as cheese and many other ingredients. So I don't go for it. But honestly, it's a lot easier. Just try, and you'll make up your mind. And if you like it, then just keep going. But if it's part of your values, you'll find the courage and you'll find the motivation to do it.
Right. Nice. So how can people stay informed and motivated in their pursuit of meat-free diet?
I would say that the hardest thing about becoming a vegetarian is the fact that you don't eat meat anymore, and that you're going to like it. You're going to like all the recipes that include meat. So I would say all you have to do is just find good vegetarian recipes, follow some vegetarian chef on Instagram, and every week you're going to discover new recipes, new alternatives, and so on. And eventually it'll be easy. But I'd say, yeah, like pay attention to alternatives, like inquire about how other people do, and you'll probably find solutions to meet your needs in a positive way. It's a Disney movie that was released 10 years ago. It's a big one. It's a parrot in the tropical rainforest, and basically they are deforesting his land, so he has nowhere to go, and they are just using cartoons and movies to educate people. Like, look, you like the parrots, but when you deforest, you're killing your parrot. You're killing the parrot you like. So people start thinking, well, I don't want that. Like, I don't want to be part of it. You understand my point? Like, they are hinting the solution to kids. They're doing it with most of their movies. They're trying to implement values in kids' mind.
So thank you, Charles, for coming on the show and inspiring and motivating all our viewers. I'm sure they're gonna be inspired, and they're gonna start trying vegetarian diet and help in saving our planet and the environment. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.